Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to another Wahoo All-In live stream presented by the Sufferfest. Today, as we mentioned in our previous streams this week, we have two special guests with us today. We have 2019 DK 200 winner and course record holder, Colin Strickland, as well as teammate Katie Kantzes joining us today. Katie's actually they both live in Austin, Texas, and Katie is rushing from a mountain bike ride, getting cleaned up, jumping on the broadcast here shortly. So we'll see her in just a minute. But Colin has long time now has held the interest of a lot of cyclists from crit racing to fixed gear racing. He's been successful at just about every discipline he sets his mind to. And most recently, obviously, with gravel, taking that on and having a really big year last year, taking on World Tour pros. And I'm sure we will hear a little bit of a story about how that went down. But if you don't know, there's tons of YouTube footage out there of it. But basically leaving, I think he left with 135 miles left in the race, went off the front on a brutally hot day in Kansas, and not only went on to hold everybody at bay to take the win, but also broke the course record. And I think he's just under 9 hours, I believe now is the course record, 8:56, I believe, 9:56, maybe 9:56, I think it is. Either way, course record, ripping fast. But let's go ahead and bring in our illustrious leader, Coach Neal Henderson. Coach, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great. Hey, I didn't realize just how big dad jokes are for your identity.
Yes, it's a critical factor. It's like a foundation of my personality and humanity.
I've heard them from you just about every time we talk. I hear some dad joke, but I didn't realize just how well known you were for your dad jokes. So I'm gonna put you on the spot here for a second. Do you have a dad joke for us?
Oh man, let's see. I wasn't even prepared, but let's see. I could probably think of something.
That's the dad stretch there and everything.
So two antennas met on a rooftop and fell in love. They decided to get married, and the ceremony wasn't much, but the reception was excellent.
Oh God, that is a dad joke. Oh man, I can't. I should pull up. Hold on. Let's introduce Colin right now because this face is classic. Yes. Colin shaking his head, saying, "No."
Here we are.
There's more where that came from.
Hello, Boulder.
I'm originally from Pennsylvania, though, man.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's where I really found. Yeah, that's where I
honed the craft.
Foundation. Yes, absolutely.
A lot of dads in Pennsylvania.
There are. I had one.
I think we all.
Yeah. Well, okay.
At least biologically.
Early for what does a thesaurus eat for breakfast? A synonym roll.
Oh man. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
That one's
Time out.
Good.
Time out. So hey, we're going to cover off on a couple different things today, and some of that is going to be talking about just training and kind of performance in general, but not just as it pertains to your on the bike fitness, but all the little things that you can show up to a race better prepared and have a better plan in place. So I know Colin that he really pays very close attention to his details and making sure that his setup is correct and he's prepared going into races, not just physically, but mentally and on just his equipment. If you follow his IG, stories, you'll see that he is constantly tinkering with something, on his bike to get that little bit extra out of it and just make sure it's dialed in. But before we kind of get into that, I think a lot of people know, Colin, who you are and know your results, especially your recent results. But I think not a lot of people know your teammate, Katie, and I think that it's worth maybe having you introduce Katie here. She just joined us. And so I know you in the past have been really good at identifying some good talent, i.e. Amity Rockwell. And so maybe you want to introduce Katie to the broadcast.
Welcome, Katie. She's just logging on now, I think. Hey.
Hey, good morning.
This is Katie.
Afternoon.
She has been a friend for a long time here in Austin, Texas, and a fellow kind of amateur racer to myself, just chasing the races for fun, really. I mean, we've both, we're working full time, 5 years ago, just going to all the local races, going to some of the national races like Tulsa Tough. And, I got to do a few training rides with Katie, and we'd kicked around the idea, I think in 2017, about Katie trying her hand at some red hook crits, based on just, being kind of a savvy, tenacious, all around tough crit racer. So, I was considering bringing on, a female rider for that, for similar reasons to, that we're teamed up now, is that, the women's race gets equal coverage, and it's just as valuable to sponsors as a marketing tool and a show. It's what we're doing is, it's pretty much a show. So especially Red Hook. So at that time I was considering Katie for Red Hook, and that never came together. Just too many moving parts for running teams and traveling to Europe 3 times a year. But then when, this year when we were, I was putting together my new kind of roster for this year, it just, having more male riders is always, awesome. And it's a team sport, typically road racing. But as the focus shifted from crits, kind of hybrid road and gravel, to kind of exclusively gravel can be more of a solitary team. It's at this time, it is more of a single rider, one-man team kind of event. If you look at the successful riders, it's, Ted King, Peter Stetna, and then, a few others, myself. And it wasn't necessary. It didn't seem necessary to have male riders, and a female rider meant a whole nother, they're competing in a whole nother race essentially. So it's another, a whole nother spotlight that's cast specifically on the female race. So it only makes sense to kind of feature a female rider under the same banner. So anyway, Katie has been racing through, well, she can tell you a little bit more about her actual, kind of the path she took through domestic road and local Texas racing, which is pretty tough. It's a pretty good training ground. But yeah, it only made sense to add a female rider, and Katie and I had, been friends for a while through racing, and I'd had personal experiences riding with her and being, racing with her in some races, and just seeing how tough she was. And I thought from my analysis, she had what it takes to be a solid gravel rider and an endurance specialist. So Katie can tell you more about her rise.
Yeah, Katie, I think you're muted right now. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I just wasn't sure if there's any feedback or anything. Anyway.
Hey, you're good.
Good. Cool.
Sound great.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, Colin and I, like you said, have known each other for years. He and my boyfriend used to do this Metal Monday race thing, and Paul would tell me that Colin would drop everybody on like this single speed thing at an embarrassing rate. But yeah, we've known each other through like the driveway and things like that for years. And
those of you that don't know the driveway series is like a classic kind of Austin crit series that's held on a racetrack. And it brings out like all the hitters and just not just the hitters, but the cycling community in general there in Austin. So just to kind of paint the picture for everybody, it's like camp from what I understand and what I've seen of it, the videos I've seen, you can find a bunch of videos online, but videos I've seen, it's like camp for cyclists every Thursday night, right?
Yeah, it's a party every Thursday. We're missing it sorely right now.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
I like the camp analogy.
Well, I mean, I think everybody has, well, I shouldn't say everybody. Most people have fond memories of camp if they went, so it's like all like-minded people. So
yeah, it's true.
It's almost like a really early night out for everyone, because you race your ass off and then you drink a bunch of beer with everyone. And it's kind of like, oh, that was my kind of, you're home by 10 usually. So it's almost like a night on the town.
Yeah.
Reasonable, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Sometime.
before I like completely jump off here, because I'm already inserting myself in this conversation too much. But what is the best thing you've ever won at a race, Colin? Because I know I think I know what the best thing is, but like, what's your best thing?
The last race of last year in the fall in October. Actually, Katie's significant other, Paul, his team does something called the mystery preem, and every week they give away. There's a preem lap, and they ring the bell. Mystery preem, Dust Wild Racing mystery preem. You don't know what it's going to be. It could be a bag of $1 bills, not hundreds. It could be. I think Lawson Craddock won a shake weight.
Nice.
And I was lucky enough. I heard it, and I was in a position, so I, took a flyer and won the preem lap, the mystery preem, and it turned out to be a 1997 Volvo station wagon.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
I love that, man.
Yeah,
it's
it was incredible.
Bad car, but also not a great car.
Not a bad car. Not one you're gonna really like.
How many miles did that thing have on it? Do you remember?
I think it had 177. But Paul, Katie's boyfriend, is an incredible Volvo mechanic, so he got it dialed in. So still best preem ever. I don't care whether it was in pristine condition or not.
I love that you didn't even have to win the race. You just
win the preem, baby.
I did not win the race. I did not win a single crit last year. That's an interesting side note. I won 4 or 5 the year before, and lots of two Dairyland stages, and then this last year, 2019, 0 crit wins. So I kind of converted the engine to a diesel, pure diesel.
full diesel mode for sure.
It takes 4 hours to warm up nowadays.
Yeah.
Okay though.
And then you've got teams like I know you're friends with Justin Williams and stuff, but you got Legion out there just raking it in now. And
not a chance.
That's taken that whole level to like a whole nother thing.
Yeah, so. It's a science. I got in the breakaway Crybaby Hill the last day of Tulsa last year, and I lasted till 3 laps to go, and then just it was a week after Dirty Kanza, but I still just couldn't hold their pace and didn't even have a chance.
Yeah, you can, and you probably kind of know it too. You're like, this is not going to work out.
You can tell by the sensations.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, listen, I'll let you guys jump into it. When we have questions come across, I'll pop them up. And then for those listening, if you have questions, go ahead and start sending them over in the comments now. And these guys will answer just about anything, I think.
Yep.
We'll see. Keep it. Actually, don't keep it appropriate.
Reasonable. Whatever.
It's a Friday. We all made it to Friday, so let's have some fun. So I'll let you guys jump into some conversation, and I'll catch up with you guys here in a little while.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Matt. All right. Well, thank you guys both for being here. I have a question for you just to get started about training. How do you know when you're kind of on the edge and when you need to pull back a little bit? When you feel like, man, I've been on the effort for a while and just need to pull back and rest and recover a little bit. Do you have anything that you pay attention to in that regard, or
Katie?
Yeah, and this has been something that I've learned over the years. I'll go pretty much until I break. I keep training and training. I have a coach now that keeps me from running myself into the ground too much. But typically it's kind of embarrassing, but I tend to get more emotional. I don't adjust as easily to change from the day to day. So once I start picking up on that, I realize either get some more sleep or, dial it back a few notches for a little bit. Colin?
Yeah.
I rarely suffer overtraining. Training is not, I enjoy it, but it certainly is not my passion in life. I have trouble getting out the door. Pretty much the point is I rarely hit the point where I'm like, okay, you need to roll it off. I think before Dirty Kanza, I did a 30-hour week, which was the only one I've ever done. The only week I've ever done over 25 hours was a few weeks before Dirty Kanza. I did a 30-hour week, 31-hour week. And, it definitely works, but it's just, I'm terribly distracted by other things in life. And yeah, it's just not something I've really experienced that much where I've like overtrained and need to dial it back. And I also have the approach, if I physically, there's a difference between fatigue, that you can kind of work through that's just unpleasant, and, immuno deficiency, or when your immune system is tangibly down, you can feel it's kind of like it's a weakness, but it's not a soreness, it's a weakness. And at that point, I don't even ride the bike. I don't push through a potential illness ever. I think that is exactly the wrong thing to do at any time ever. Because if you're not, you're doing more harm than good at that point, almost universally. Soreness, of course, stacking training days on top of one another, and muscular soreness and that kind of fatigue. But being able to differentiate the two, I've found, is essential. And that's definitely something I'm very aware of.
Yeah. In coaching, when I've had groups of athletes like training together, that's actually where I developed more of my dad jokes for me. When somebody has lost any sense of humor at all, that's clear that they're over the edge. Like, it's like, okay, like I tell the dad joke and 8 out of 10 are laughing, but 2 of them are just like dead flat. Then it's like, all right, these 2 we're going to have to pull back. Like if it's not that day, it's after this session, they're going to be, doing a little bit less training until they kind of get things coming around. The other thing I've done is reached out to significant others when I coach an athlete who's, really kind of at that top end, and just let them know, like, you've got a direct line to me. If they're just being like, crappy at home and whatnot, like if it doesn't seem like they're doing well from, they're just overdone, let me know. Cause they sometimes an athlete just wants to keep pushing forward, and they don't want to be told to do less or to back it off now. And so I enlist the help of the significant other to help identify, okay, it's, they're not adjusting well to this load. We got to pull back.
Especially if there's an event on the horizon that they're kind of, they really have a sense of urgency about.
Yeah. Cause it's easy to get that kind of tunnel vision, right? As you get towards an event. Looks like we have a question coming in from George. And he has a question. Compression, is it pseudoscience or does it work? What's your guys' take? I'll give you mine.
Katie?
I'm not sure if it works, but it's fun. I have these, I don't know if you can, oh no, they're on the floor. I have these the inflatable boot things. Honestly, I mean, I think part of it is just actually resting, putting your legs up and doing absolutely nothing but sitting there. It might be more psychological or psychosomatic, but I enjoy using them every once in a while. I kind of forget that we have them. So it's only when I'm really hurting that I'll resort to that. Rescue operation. Yes. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. I know that's not a very scientific answer that you're probably looking for. But I enjoy using them.
Colin?
My thinking is that, the root of all, or the kind of basic function of all muscular repair, recovery, everything is blood flow, because your blood is the conduit that brings new material, flushes waste products. So any way that you can increase blood flow will hasten recovery. I don't know if you mean during, if you mean during competition. I know some triathletes wear compression during competition, but I do know that during, that blood gravity, if you're standing if you're on your feet on the bike all day, or if you have to work after, a ride or something, you will have blood accumulating in your legs. And at that point, you are not flushing new material, new blood, new proteins to, aminos to rebuild the muscles and flush waste products. So compression can help push blood out, if it's a compression sleeve that's just static, or whether it's, some Normatec boots, which I do use, because I believe they flush blood out of your legs, and the act of flushing it out will inherently pull more blood in. And that is how repair and recovery happens, is blood flow. So if you can do anything to increase blood flow, even that's a basic function of massage, it may or may not repair your muscles or hasten that, but it will increase blood flow, and that will undeniably bring more material to them and help your body recover. So will compression boots alone, or like sleeves when, if you have a long, often I have had them in the past, compression sleeves, and tried to wear them on, if I'm flying to Europe for a race, I have tried to wear compression sleeves because you're sitting for 8 hours and you're racing in 2 days or something. And yes, you will get a lot of, stagnation or a long drive. It is a bit of a dark science because it's hard to prove, but it's hard to argue that keeping blood from stagnating in your legs through inactivity is detrimental. So I think they, in theory, definitely can serve a purpose. Neal?
Yeah. From there's a couple different perspectives. So if you think of like a compression sock, then actually for travel, post-exercise, getting on an airplane, especially, actually, it's dangerous to like do a hard event and then like do a long drive. I know a couple athletes, including like Mike Friedman and some others, after having done a competition, jumping in a car, driving, a couple day long drive, actually get a DVT, deep vein thrombosis. So using compression socks, if you are doing a race, jumping on a plane and traveling, or jumping in your car the next day and doing a long drive, or even that day, can help reduce that chance of DVTs. From the recovery side of things, then we can think of like the boots, compression boots and things like that. Definitely, I find benefit. Like as a coach, when I was working with Taylor Finney back in 2008, getting ready for the Beijing Olympics, he was 18 years old. Compression boots gave me like 30 minutes to an hour of time where I knew he wouldn't get in trouble or do anything ridiculous, because he had tons of energy and like we were training and for a period of that time, like we were over in Europe and there wasn't a whole lot going on, and so like doing an hour session there, like you just know he's shut down, he's relaxing, recovering, and just not going to do other stuff, which was helpful in that regard. So just from a lockdown, and kind of Katie, to your point, that recovery, for sure, like it just locks you down, and it's good. The compression itself, in terms of blood flow and the reactive hyperemia that happens after that, absolutely beneficial. I use them myself. There's some benefits there, but you can also do things if you don't have that full on like compression. You can get a similar thing from a cold ice bath with your legs. You'll get that reactive hyperemia and big increase in blood flow, which will help speed recovery. So just a couple things to think about there.
I was also going to say too, the cheapest way to do it is put your legs against a wall. I mean, I do that all the time.
Yeah, exactly. If you're at hotel room or wherever at home, just straight up, easy.
Yep.
Looks like we got another question here from Kobe. Do you have any cross training, i.e. plyos, core, lifting for endurance events, or in general? Is it just mostly just big miles training and time on the bike? What are you guys strategies? Are you pretty much ride exclusively in terms of like physical training, or are you incorporating other types of movements in there, like strength, core, etc.?
For me personally, as much as I try to mimic Kate Courtney's awesome workout videos, I find it hard to find I do not really do any cross training these days. I come from a background of, at my old job, as an environmental scientist and endangered karst invertebrate specialist, I would actually excavate. I would spend literally 8-hour days digging material out of sinkholes and, rocks and dirt, and hauling it up with buckets and working a, rock bar in Texas. So I actually come from a very well-rounded core musculature structure, but I have not carried out any off-bike core training for, I am ashamed to say, probably for about 4 years. That being said, it's not that I just sit on a bike and pedal. When I train, I'm almost always like in an aero position, which inherently engages your core and your back. It's different sitting on, imagine just if aerodynamics were not a factor and you would just sit on a trainer upright, which is kind of your natural, it's the most comfortable way to pedal. That would not really engage your core, and you would end up with, a faulty, a discrepancy in your core strength. But if I'm a strong believer for personally, I try to mimic my race efforts in training, and you can't do exactly the same. Race efforts are always bigger, and they would destroy you if you did them day after day. But the more that I can kind of mimic my race position and my somewhat race outputs, the more you can kind of, dress rehearsal, the better prepared you are for race day. So that means riding in a narrow position with your back virtually horizontal. You're strengthening your suspension system. And those are the muscles that you're using. I mean, you can do arbitrary, the weights certainly it's a big benefit of it is injury prevention for sure. And I've had some, spinal muscular spasms in the past that might last a week or so from time to time, but I've been pretty lucky that I haven't had that in a year or so. But for me personally, while I totally recognize the benefit of the cross training, it's hard for me to block in that time. And I just spend it all on the bike and kind of dump all of my energy into that and kind of mimic the way that I race in training and strengthen my core via, an aerodynamic position, which is very taxing. Not only that, but it trains your glutes and other muscles to engage at an extreme angle. Whereas if you ride your bikes upright in training, doing hard efforts, or as you would do up a climb where aerodynamics are not as much of a factor, then you get into this position where you're hunched over and you're engaged, your glutes are stretched all the way around your hips, and it's really a different, the physics of it have changed, and it's a different mechanical, the mechanics of it have changed as well. So your muscles might fatigue much faster. It's like being on a time trial. It's why you ride a time trial bike in training, to adapt your muscles to fire at an extreme hip angle.
Yep.
So no.
Okay. Katie, how about you? Any other off-bike type training, core strength, stability, plyos, yoga, etc.?
Yeah, I do yoga a few times a week, mostly just because I enjoy it. I'm not, doing anything fancy, no crow poses and, headstands and stuff like that. But I do really enjoy that as a way to just do something different while still moving. It's also really important to get some like weight bearing activity in as a female. You want to prevent bone loss as you age, and also do some strength training. Even walking helps in that regard. And I've been doing more kind of like explosive strength training too. So jumps, things like that, just to do something different, build some more muscle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can talk from a couple different perspectives, from coaching and just looking, generally speaking, having that strength stability helps reduce the potential for injury, overuse injury type things. Having the strength training, some of what we do is actually not just about the muscle, but actually the connective tissue, especially the tendons. So when people do more training and they get tendonitis, it's not actually the muscle that's the issue. It's the tendon that is actually wasn't capable of tolerating the stress that the muscle placed on it. So strength training actually increases that tendon capacity as well. So there's elements there that are definitely important there. Balance also, if you actually crash your bike, being stronger overall keeps you together better.
Mm-hmm.
You see, from bone density as well as all the other structural support and whatnot. For me, from a older person's perspective, I'm in my later 40s. And so, strength and stability, when I was in my 20s, I didn't have to do as much because I did, powerlifting more. So I did, track and field type things. So I had a bigger strength base, but that deteriorated over time. And by the time I hit age 30, I had to retire from racing as a triathlete because of accumulation of injuries and things, because I kind of neglected certain areas. And so it's something that I've had to go back on. But like Colin, your background in doing physical manual labor. I spent 8 hours in the garden last week, moving rocks around and,
wow.
Chopping wood and doing all that. I was absolutely destroyed. I hit like my, highest season power on Saturday. I did 8 hours of manual labor Sunday, and I'm finally just kind of getting out of the hole. And hopefully this weekend I'll be good to ride again. But I was wrecked from that. So It's all, a matter of what you've been preparing to do. And I wasn't prepared for that much garden work at once. So it was a bit of an overload.
Encourage people to get practical things done with training versus just sitting in your living room and move a weight around. Go work on your yard, go move some dirt, move some rocks, help some other people do it. Maybe use it as an opportunity to use that
functional, man.
You're just blowing, and function. You make it functional. Do something for somebody.
Exactly. We have another question coming in from, let's see, Tiamir. During a daily training session, what are you focusing on? So, Katie, what do you focus when you're like in a training session, just on a given day?
I mean, usually when I'm riding or doing strength training, I'm thinking about like the larger picture of things, not as granular. Like, where does this ride going to get me in a month or so? So I was thinking about doing like the Ted King DIY gravel, starting with the Kanza at the end of the month. So this weekend, I'm hoping to get some really long miles in. So on that training session, I'll be thinking about, okay, well, I want to get at least 6 to 7 hours in so that in a few weeks, I'll be prepared to do that longer effort. So I tend to be pretty intentional about my training each session.
Mm-hmm.
Not
so you're
always,
kind of in the focus more so. A little bit.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's nice to take breaks and do something different every now and then, not have any structure at all. But even with that, like I've been getting out on the mountain bike more, and that's nice because there's I can't look at power numbers or anything like that, but I'm still like, my focus is how can I get more skills and improve this, that, or the other thing for that session.
Yeah, definitely. Colin, how about you? What are you thinking about when you're riding?
Well, it all depends on what time of year it is and what the ride, how the ride fits into the larger kind of plan of competition. So in the off season, I try to just enjoy, getting out on the bike, which encourages me to do it again and again and again. But as early season, I often will focus on getting both the power output from both legs, kind of hone it in so it's even power output. If you have a dual readout power meter, I find that tool really essential. Katie and I both have the Dura Ace R9100P, which has a dual readout. Each crank arm has its own power meter, so you can hone to make sure both legs are producing power evenly. And that's a great thing to focus on in off season, early season, before you start doing intense race efforts. A lot of companies produce them, or you can just, one-legged drills could serve as a substitute for that. Other things I think about are project schemes, other business endeavors. I'm building a Spartan trailer right now to make my way to the mountains. Nice. So I'm always like using that time on the bike to just process thoughts. A lot of our lives, we don't, especially if you have a full-time job, you don't have time to kind of chew and digest ideas. So spend the time on the bike to just digest things that you want to work out in your mind and in your life. It's a great opportunity, not just focus on, all right, 326 watts, 330 watts, again, do something useful with the time if it's that kind of ride. I like to focus on more mechanically, like knee alignment. There you go. Knee alignment, and watch my knees and make sure I'm tracking and I don't have a wiggle in one of the knees, like a kind of a hop or something. So mechanically that both knees are tracking straight, which is something that you can kind of lose in the off season if you take, a month off, or I take usually, at least 6 weeks off. So that's a good time you're sitting on the bike, focus on the mechanics of it. And if you can pay attention to it and just kind of hone it in, then it will become second nature and you'll have muscle memory. So knee alignment is one thing. I try to focus on this. I flex through my ankle in a pedal stroke. So I engage my entire front of my calf instead of just holding your leg static and just pushing with your quad. If you can kind of flex through your ankle with every pedal stroke, it engages more muscles and it builds more muscles. And ultimately you'll have more muscles in line, contributing, and the fatigue will be distributed over more muscles in a race. So all these little things that you can hone in training that you just can't think about when you're focusing on racing, run through the details of ways you want to improve your pedal stroke, pivoting at your hips instead of bending over at your back, like sticking, all these little things I focus on when I'm alone out training, that you would otherwise be chatting with somebody. If you're on a group ride, take that opportunity to really focus on the mechanics of your body on the bike.
Yeah, no, it's definitely helpful to pay attention to what you're doing in that way. What would you say are things that off the bike that are most beneficial for you as an athlete, as a racer, to have success? Like things that you do that don't involve riding at all. Colin, I guess start with you. Like, what do you think are your things that somebody could do or that you do personally that help you have better performances that have really nothing to do with, say, with like training, pedaling, etc.?
Well, the more we move into endurance gravel racing, the more, it's self-supported. So I spend a lot of time, working on my bikes and building bikes and getting to know my equipment and knowing how to field remedy things, but more basically so much nowadays goes back to tires and how to quickly, effectively triage and repair a tire to get yourself back on the road. When you spend so much energy, we spend so much time and energy training, as everybody does, not just as elite athletes, everybody does. And we spend money on travel, we spend time on travel, we register for races months in advance, we get to this race. And then a lot of people, they put together a flat kit, they bought all the things, but they have no idea how to effectively, quickly triage, figure out what happened to their tire such that it is flat, how to quickly, what the best way to get the puncture repaired, get back on the road, and that's the kind of stuff that really you have to do it. You have to, not that you should take a knife and puncture your tire, but just get to know your equipment, because I think things are definitely moving in a direction of less and less team cars with wheels. And it's, I think cycling in
your stuff,
trimming the fat, and you need to know how to deal with your own equipment, and that's energy's well worth invested. Research, and then just take your flat kit apart and know exactly what each component is. Know when you approach a race, know where to find each thing, and know that you have about 15 seconds to get back on your bike and start chasing. I got a puncture in Dirty Kanza at mile 77 when we were still a strong group of 25 going very fast. And it took me about 15 seconds to put a plug into my rear tire, put some CO2 in, and it was still about a 25-minute chase with aero bars going full steam. So you really have to hone your knowledge of things like that.
Yep, definitely. Katie, what are your kind of thoughts about like off the bike things that you do to help you have improved performance?
Yeah, I would start with sleep, honestly. Totally different angle than Colin, but I've been learning a lot about how important sleep is, especially as your training load ticks up, whether that's duration, intensity, or combination of both, and prioritizing good sleep too, not just like being in bed. So kind of setting the stage, making sure the house is cool, that kind of thing, has been important for me. And then also kind of along with the same thing with like mindset would be doing meditation daily as well. And I've actually found that to be really helpful, not just for training, but for, our current situation as well, coping with everything that's going on.
Yeah, definitely. That's, mental training is something, takes different forms, and meditation and just calming and being, okay, or, comfortable with yourself in silence is actually something I think that pays dividends in long endurance type competition.
You're going to be by yourself a lot.
You're going to be talking to one person in your mind for a while. And so you want to be comfortable there and be good with it.
Yep. Exactly.
Guys, this has been a lot of fun. I feel like there's still questions coming in, and I'm like already looking at the clock, and we're 42 minutes in, and I'm like, we could do this for an hour plus easy.
Yeah. We could do a speed session, like a speed response.
Speed round.
They're all pretty in-depth questions, so I think they're like, specific about training and eating and stuff like that. So I think what I'd say is if we could go on and just kind of answer some of these questions in the comments after this live stream, I think it'd be helpful for some people to spend a few minutes doing that. And also I just wanted to point out that Katie, this is your first real kind of big. Okay. Sorry, you there?
Yeah.
Just looked over at the comments.
Yeah, they're coming in.
A lot.
Katie, this is kind of your first real big kind of transition from road to off-road stuff. Is that accurate?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, my first gravel ride was
we prefer crappy roads
last year.
You're in Texas, right?
Yeah.
We're not off-road. We are on crappy road.
Crappy road.
There are plenty of them around here.
Yeah.
But yes, that's accurate.
Yeah. So, I mean, given the current situation, one of the things that's interesting to me is, do you feel defeated by the situation right now, in the sense of like almost like having this new challenge, taking on this new kind of like objective, right? And then I don't know, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. It's like having it circumstantially like taken away. Like how does that impact like your motivation, or do you feel like it gives you more time to prepare, or what's your thinking?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a mixed bag. I think that in a way it's been, I mean, obviously it's a little sad. I don't get to go to these huge stages that I've been kind of chasing for a long time, but I also have more time to work on my skills now. I've been really trying to look at it as a huge opportunity more than anything else. And I do think that we will still have racing, maybe not in the next month or two, but it's going to happen, I think, by the end of the year. And even if not then, like we can use this time in other ways to really dial it for when we can.
Yeah.
And
I think, athletes in a lot of ways are uniquely positioned to have that sort of response. I think, especially endurance athletes are so used to kind of overcoming adversity and overcoming setbacks. Colin, I mean, dude, 35 miles in, you said 35 miles into the race, you had a flat?
77.
77 miles. Yeah. So like I think a lot of athletes would look at that and go, okay, that day's done, like maybe I'm not going to get back, you know what I mean? But having that, like, I know my stuff, I know my skill set, and being able to like bounce back from it, and just put your head down and do the work. Yeah. Just like one more, thing. It's like, okay, pandemic, one more kind of challenge to overcome. So how do I become better, off this? Yeah. I feel like it's an athlete sort of thing. And I think cyclists and endurance athletes in general do spend so much time alone that you're almost, you're in a position to kind of be strong, already, and resilient to some degree already. So, well, I appreciate you guys joining. I really wish we could continue this, actually. We'd love to get you guys over on the podcast. It's funny because you were talking about, Katie, this is sort of like the same situation that you're sort of in right now. So I don't know how much you know about Ian Boswell, but Boz is in a similar situation where coming from World Tour road racing, and then like no like off-road, no gravel, crappy road experience. I love seeing your Instagram video the other day of like riding a mountain bike for
the first
one of
time.
the first time. I love that you did that, by the way, and totally shared that. And Ian's sort of in the same place where he's like setting up my wheels tubeless for the first time. And I don't know what it is, but I find it like really inspiring to see people that are accomplished and are really good at what they do, taking on like really new challenges and just accepting the not knowing. Like it makes the rest of us feel like normal. So
super normal.
It's been fun to watch. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun to watch. Keep up the hard work, and I'd love to get you over on the podcast and hear more about everything you're doing. I know you're a full-time employee as well, and balancing all of the stuff going on. So I think there's so much more to talk about than we've just scratched the surface for sure. And Colin, driveway series, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully we see that. If you guys don't follow Colin, you guys need to go follow Colin on IG, because the stories are just really, really good. And I love following the work on the trailer. What you're doing is way more than just like fixing it up. you're like completely redoing it. And so that's a lot of fun to watch, that there's so many more interests than just putting your head down and doing the hard work on the bike. So both of you guys, thanks again for joining, and we'll catch up with you real soon.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Anything that you guys want to add? Any special things that you guys are working on that you want to draw attention to before we jump off? Sorry, I meant to prep you on that before. I usually prep, but I'm putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, no, I think we should call it shitty road racing. That's what gravel racing is. Shitty road racing.
I like that. And if you guys do decide to do, Ted's DIY gravel thing, we should get a little back and forth going on IG or something, because I'm gonna go do, I think, a 217-mile route up in the Appalachian Mountains. It's like 22,000 feet of vert. I'm trying to convince myself to do it in one ride, but I have a feeling I'm gonna sleep and then do it a second day. But I'll tag you guys in some stuff, and if you guys are doing stuff too, we'll send some stuff back and forth. It'll be fun.
Okay.
I know I could personally use the encouragement.
Well, now you said it, so I guess we have to do it.
Yeah, it's too late.
I know that's half of it. I just put it out there, so I got to do it now. So, all right, guys, have a great day. Thanks for joining. Neal, as usual. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Fun.
Nice to meet you, Neal. Bye.
All right, guys. Thanks to Colin and Katie for joining, and of course having Coach Neal on as usual. We'll be back here Monday at 12 p.m. Eastern for another workout. Next week, I believe I have to pull up the calendar now. I'm kind of forgetting who we have. I believe we have Sarah Sturm on next weekend. Yeah, we have Sarah Sturm on next weekend. 2019 Belgian Waffle San Diego winner. She didn't even know she was in the lead until a good way through that race, and someone told her, and she went on to win it. So we have her. She's gonna be doing a workout with Neal on Monday, and then Wednesday we've got strength and cross training with Coach Susie, and then Friday we have Sarah coming back for a Q&A just like today. So go ahead and get your questions queued up. Get ready for that next week, and we'll be right back at it. I'll leave you with this. If you're not currently a Sufferfest subscriber, all that information is down in the description below. There's a good trial going on right now, so go ahead and join that. And until then, I hope you guys all have a safe weekend, and be healthy and be happy. We'll catch you next week.